Real estate folks, you can approach it one of two ways. You can be transactional. I'm going to try to sell this person a house. They're looking for X, Y, and Z, and I'm just going to look at my inventory and try to close a deal here. Let me show them a bunch of houses, make the sign of the cross, and hope they buy something. Google can monetize, meaning they can sell advertising, et cetera, et cetera. So my argument that SEO is dead was really predicated on this concept of
Before we begin the podcast, I have a super simple ask for you. If you could subscribe to the channel, that would help us reach more business owners every single day. Thank you. Let's begin. Mike, you're a strategic consultant who recently made a relatively bold but common claim. That claim is SEO is dead. Now, my audience is primarily real estate agents and brokers. So can you explain why you believe SEO to be dead and kind of the downstream effects of that would be on real estate or small businesses?
Yeah, nice. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here, by the way. Thanks for inviting me to the show. You make these claims. So first of all, part of it, the claim that SEO is dead, I love that you say the bold but common claim. Part of the game is you've got to win the YouTube algorithm. And so often you have to overstate things. Although I will say I do believe there's an aspect to SEO that's dead. And, I think part of the challenge with technology is the pace at which it changes. And if you look at the SEO world, SEO has been out for a long time, actually. I remember looking at HTML metadata where people would just keyword stuff, or they'd have all these keywords in white text, so that when you went to the website, you couldn't see the text, but the spiders could read all these keywords. And so it's just a way to try to hack the system. Google, obviously the biggest search engine in the world, YouTube, the second biggest, owned by Google. So they've got a monopoly, and people are always trying to figure out, how do we rank? How do we get organic ranking? So the reason I made that video is we're going through a huge change right now in how the technology works. And that change really is AI. Now, AI is a bit hyped. I'm not buying in completely that it's going to change everything. But you got to admit, it's powerful. AI is powerful, and what it's doing is quite interesting. And I think when you couple the capabilities of AI with Google's business interests, their interest has always been to keep you on the SERP, the search engine results page, as long as possible. And with AI now, they can kind of change it up. So in the past, they were able to say, okay, Mike Gastin's going to write an article on how to escape wage slavery. It's a great article. It's great content. It answers questions that people are asking all the time. So we're going to serve that up. And now Mike's ranking number one, and he made a video, so that's also ranking. So now Mike's getting all this traffic from Google. But now Google can say, well, let's take our AI bot, have it scrape everything from Mike's content, and we'll serve up the answer. And this keeps people on the SERP, because the longer people are on the SERP, the more Google can monetize, meaning they can sell advertising, et cetera, et cetera. So my argument that SEO is dead was really predicated on this concept that the technology is changing, and the AI ability to formulate its own answers starts to negate the need for content from people like you and I. Now, saying that it's dead is overstated, but classic SEO is like, well, how do I provide answers to questions? How do I put content out there that people are looking for? And then Google will just surface my content and I'll get traffic. And I think that's changing. So the argument there was just, hey, the technology is changing. This thing as you know it is dead. That's where I overstated. It's not going to die. SEO is never going to completely go away. But if you've been thinking about SEO in the classic sense, if I make some videos and put some articles up, I'm going to get traffic. Yeah, you are, but not like you used to. That model is dead. And so how do we go forward? How this relates to real estate agents, I've got a lot of thoughts on that. If real estate agents are looking to Google, and I won't go too deep in this, but just to touch on this, we can come back to it. If you're looking for Google searches, meaning I'm going to go on Google and search, my wife and I, we moved to Charleston, South Carolina, about 3+ years ago. I'm going to do some research on Charleston, et cetera, as I'm looking for a home, but that's probably not the place that I'm going to do most of my research. Most of my research is going to be on YouTube. And I think there's some phenomenal opportunities there, but we can talk about some of that.
I actually 100% agree with you on that. So
Yeah.
one thing that I'm going to start implementing on all of my clients' websites is doing blog post animated video. That is literally just the
Okay.
blog post. I use the blog post and model the script off of that, because then I can get in 3 places instead of 1 place on Google. So I can show up on YouTube, I can show up on the YouTube videos, I can show up on the SERP
Mm-hmm.
features for YouTube, and I can show up in
Mm-hmm.
organic.
Right.
And
So how? Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Keep explaining that. I'm curious.
so basically, instead of doing like essentially what you're doing is you create a YouTube video and you talk about that. And then I saw your website, a lot of your blogs are modeled off of YouTube videos, if I'm correct. Or
Yeah.
did you?
I played with that through the years. I haven't done a ton with my
Mhm.
blog lately, but yes, that's right.
That's exactly it. So what I do is I pay someone to do the editing, just a short, like 2 or 3 minute video, because then it can get indexed as well. And I actually
Mm-hmm.
care more about the indexing than I do really anything else. So I can show up on YouTube, I can show up on essentially all these features because no one else in real estate is doing it. And so I don't need super, super high quality videos comparatively, especially if you're niche. So,
Well, give me an example of what a typical video would be. If you're saying you don't need super high quality, what kinds of videos are you creating?
like just talking to a camera, like literally like a podcast style like this. And then you can add a few
Okay.
graphics. That's all you really need. And reason being, people who are searching for real estate care
Mm-hmm.
more about the information and making their lives easier. So as long as you're providing the value, that's what matters.
Okay.
I think it's the same thing that what you're doing, if I'm correct. So a lot of your videos are pretty much you talking, adding a couple things on top of it, but it's primarily value focused.
Mm-hmm.
I,
Yeah. So go ahead. Yeah. I was just listening. Yep.
yeah. So real estate SEO is really, really hard because you have to be so specific. You have to go for a lot of long tail keywords compared to like short
Mm-hmm.
tail with a lot of other things where you go long tail into short tail. It's just long tail for SEO, because for short tail, you're competing with Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, all of these guys
Right.
that are just going to dominate you. So it's all about being hyper
So
specific.
short tail for you is like I've got a listing on 129 Smith Boulevard, and now I'm trying to get this thing to rank. So that's short tail.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas long tail is like popular restaurants in a given neighborhood in Las Vegas.
Bingo.
Is that correct?
Bingo. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Yeah, this is the thing. People think that SEO is this magic bullet and it gives me the ability to punch above my weight. And so I can compete with the Zillows of the world. And it is true. That is true to a degree, but you're not going to outrank them because Google's
Mm-hmm.
looking to these big hitter sites for authority, trustworthiness. They've got all this gravitas, this marketing, gravity. You can't beat that. However, you can provide insights and on the ground stuff that a homeowner is looking for, someone that wants to move to an area or kind of move neighborhoods. You can provide such great information that they can't get anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Zillow can give a chart like crime rates. Okay, it tells me it's so many percent or whatever, but that doesn't really tell me the story of this neighborhood. And it might be the data might be deceptive to the narrative, and that's where you have an opportunity, I think, with narrative to kind of tell stories and get people in on a deeper level, that long tail stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah. It's amazing, especially like the story aspect, because people,
Hmm.
the lifeblood of people is stories. So if you can tell a
Yeah,
story about this neighborhood, people buy into it right away. So I
sure,
also wanted
sure.
to ask you kind of you're primarily a consultant, strategic consultant for businesses. What is
Hmm.
your bread and butter for a strategic consultant? Like what
Sure.
specifically would you say makes you stand out?
Yeah, yeah. So my consultancy, I've been doing consulting since 2016. I had an agency, a design marketing branding agency before that for almost 18 years. I've been involved in sales, marketing, branding, and entrepreneurship since I had hair, and then the hair was dark and curly. It was a long time ago. But what makes me stand out is, first of all, I focus. So my consultancy is focused solely on privately owned businesses. Typically, these are companies between 10 and 200 million in revenue. What I do for them is these companies have grown through sales. So just like your real estate clients, they're out there hustling, they're selling. So all these companies have been around for sometimes generations, or they're newer, but the founder got out there and knocked on doors and solved problems and closed deals. And you can grow a company pretty big. You can get up to 20, 30 million just selling. These companies are now ready to scale. And what they want to do is not just add 5, 10 million in revenue, but they want to become $500 million companies. Well, to do that, you've got to get sophisticated with marketing. You have to have strategy. You have to be able to innovate. And so what I do is I come in and I'm like, look, you guys you got sales in your DNA. Maybe you're a engineering firm or a healthcare firm or whatever that is, but you don't really get marketing. Marketing has just been support. So when you're in a sales mentality, marketing's job is to create brochures and update the website, just like sales support. However, you've got to hand the baton over and allow marketing to become more strategic to generate opportunity, transformation, and wealth for the business. And how do you do that? So I'll come in and work as an advisor to the owner and say, look, I will help you build this out. I'll create strategy. I'll create processes. We'll put people in place, et cetera. And I'll build a strategic transformational marketing department that you can then use to scale your business. What makes me unique, I think, everybody's a unique flower. So, I don't presume that there's no one else like me. However, I tend to think conceptually, strategically, but I've owned and run businesses before. And so I get what the client, the owner of these businesses, I get their pain, I get their frustration, I understand what they're trying to accomplish. And so rather than sit across from the table from them and say, well, I'm trying to convince them, I can sit next to them like a trusted advisor and say, let me help you do what it is you're trying to do. I get you. I've been you before, but I'm on this other side here and I can bring some real expertise, kind of like their attorney or their accountant. So that's what, helps me succeed with my clients. Yeah.
Real estate agents, are you struggling to capture leads? If you're struggling to capture leads through your website, we can help. We've created a step-by-step guide on how to use our lead capture engine. It's the system we've used on all of our real estate websites to capture sellers, including Cade Covey, who earned an extra $80,000 in just 3 months by working with us. Are you ready to set up your lead capture engine? Visit dmrmedia.org/#gift to learn more about how we can get warm leads like a pro.
I like the experience part. I feel like that should be a prereq for being a consultant for businesses. But I understand that a lot of guys come out of college and are like, I'm going to be a strategic consultant. And then, yeah. Owning a business and walking the walk is really, really important, especially like for anything.
Sure.
Like,
I think too.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think it's hard when you're younger because like you have a vision. Like I think wanting to be a consultant is fantastic. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. When I owned my agency, graphic designers would get out of college and they'd want to do a portfolio review and I'd sit with them. And every so often there was a guy who was like really hungry. He just had that entrepreneurial spirit. Yes, he was a graphic designer by training so far in college, but he was an entrepreneur at heart. And it's like he wanted to just launch out there, or she, and start their business freelance immediately. And I'm like, look, that's great. Like, don't lose that drive, but get some industry experience, work under some people that have been doing this for decades, not generations, work in a bigger firm, learn how they do pricing, learn how the business works, and also get challenged. Because if you freelance on day one and let's say you do a logo, you get a job for a logo, you freelance, well, you need other creative people to push you to do better work. So you spend a year or two working under somebody else, you kind of get more developed and seasoned, then you're ready to launch out. The reason I say all that is I think experience is good, but when you're younger, it's hard to think in terms of a chain of events. You're like, I just want to do this thing and I don't want to wait. And I get that. I've been there. But if you go, I'm going to invest a year or two working underneath someone else, that's going to lead me to this next step, which gets me closer to what I really want. So yeah, it's a challenge, but I love it when I see younger people with that drive, because like that's the future. Those are the people that make our economy work. The ones that are like, I want to get out there and make this happen. But you are right, Andrew. there are a lot of people consulting that have no idea what they're talking about, and it gives consulting a bad name. But what are you going to do? There are people my age that don't know what they're talking about that are out there consulting. So it's not an age thing necessarily.
Yeah, I love the young people thing of like, you have to go and get it. But the problem is you do need the training. That's something that I was struggling with for a very long time. So I'm 19, right? And I got into doing websites initially.
Look at you, man. Yeah.
Thank you. I got into doing websites via a tech school teacher. So essentially he was like, hey, can you do this website for so-and-so? Like, you're clearly very good with stuff. So I took on the website. I just did it for free, whatever. And I just kind of did free stuff. But here's the problem. When you have a free portfolio, you don't have people around you being like, hey, you could try this, you could try that, you could try this. And so I didn't get as good as fast as I could have.
Yeah,
So-
it's tough. And I think you're not pushed. I mean, I hear 100%. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'll just say, I made that comment earlier, like you need to be challenged. So when you're doing free work, people are like, well, he's doing it for free. I don't want to, but when you're getting paid, like you got to do your best work possible. I'm not saying that you didn't do your best work, but someone's going to say, look, this is fine, but it doesn't work well enough. I'm going to lose sales if this flow doesn't happen the way, and the way you've designed this button just doesn't do it for me. Now you're forced to push yourself, and you get more critical feedback. Although I have found, and I'd be curious to know what you think, often the people where you do work for free are the most demanding, ungrateful, critical clients. It's like you're doing this thing for free and they're picky. The guy that says, I'll give you 20 grand to do this thing that's going to take you a day, he's like, oh, I don't want to push you too hard. You know, is this fair for you? It's like, how does that work? But yeah, what's been your experience with that?
I have pivoted exactly because of that. So I have found that my low ticket clients, the ones who pay the least, are the most demanding in general. And so I spend more time on theirs than I do the high ticket. Like one of my clients, he gave me 16 grand to build out the website, super simple. And he's giving me 4 grand a month to write 1 email a week.
Yeah.
And literally I get a text a week of, how does the email look? I send it to him and he's like, looks great, send it out.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So high ticket is definitely less, you get people who are less, what's the word for it? Like digging into your work because they see the value in it by the time they buy.
Yeah.
Whereas low ticket, they're kind of like, eh. I did want to say,
I was talking.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No,
I was going to say on the free stuff as well. Some of those are really, really good because if you ask them for feedback, they'll give you like really critical feedback. So one of my clients, Cade Covey, he was my first real estate client. He was very critical, but he wasn't like the mean critical. He was like, change this here from like a marketing perspective. I learned so much from building that website. So you do have to ask for good feedback if you're doing something free.
Absolutely. And I think too, a lot of people don't realize this on the front end, but like when you're queuing up a project, creative project, technical project, business project, whatever it is, and I would say this applies to your real estate folks, you can approach it one of two ways. You can be transactional. I'm going to try to sell this person a house. You know, they're looking for X, Y, and Z, and I'm just going to look at my inventory and try to close the deal here. Let me show them a bunch of houses, make the sign of the cross, and hope they buy something. And I think sometimes you have to do that based on time. But the more time you can figure out what problems are these people really trying to solve, meaning, you know, you talk to somebody, well, what's your issue? Well, it's budget. I don't have a lot of money to work with. And then you think, okay, I got to keep the price down. It's like, well, hang on a second. Let me understand this. Like, what's going on with budget? So you start asking questions. You start to realize, like I found in my work, sometimes a prospect would talk about budget. This is when I owned my agency. We were working with Fortune 50 companies. You start to dig into it and you realize, well, the company is about to be acquired. And this middle manager is trying to look good to his or her boss. And so he's trying to keep all the costs down to show, look, I'm helping get us ready for the sale. So he's not talking about budget because there isn't money. He's trying to look good to his boss. And so I'm like, well, look, what if I charge a little bit more, but I can make you look really good to your boss? And here's how. Well, all of a sudden I'm solving a higher level or a deeper, if you want to look at it that way, problem. And I'm actually doing better. So often, if you can dig a little deeper and find out what the motivations are for why people say they want certain things, then you can actually solve a more valuable problem for them. And I think that goes to real estate sales all the way to web dev, et cetera, and beyond. And a lot of times we just get stuck on that surface level of, they said these are the 3 issues that they have, and so I'm going to run around trying to solve those things. It's kind of a finesse thing that I think you get over time with experience, but it sounds like you're on the track. I can't believe you're 19. I'm still trying to get over that.
I'm only 19 for 2 more days, so you won't be saying that for long.
Okay. You're practically an old man now. Good for you. That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Real estate agents, are you tired of chasing leads? If you're struggling to find quality sellers or feel like marketing takes up too much time, DMR Media can help. We specialize in getting real estate agents high quality leads, ready to buy leads through SEO and pay per lead approach. That means basically no upfront cost and 0 risk. You pay when we deliver results. Imagine a steady flow of clients finding you on Google while you focus on closing deals. We've done it for agents like Cade Covey, who earned an extra $80,000 in just 3 months with our system. Take back your time and get results. Visit dmrmedia.org to learn more about how we can make your marketing work for you.
I did want to highlight, so for all of my real estate clients, one of the biggest things that I want to say all of them get wrong is they're all transactional. They're like house in, house out, but they never speak to the pain point of the client and what can we help you with. So one of the big shifts that I make on the website that really, really drives everything home is a simple lead magnet that all it says is, are you struggling with buying a home, or are you struggling with selling your home, or are you stressed? Because if you say struggling or stressed, the clicks double like that. And people are super interested. And so you have to talk, what are their pain points and how can I help the pain points? And so all I do on the website is come in and say, pain point, lead magnet that helps pain point.
I agree. I like that. I would add to that. So that's top of funnel with the lead magnet. But I also think that the transactional piece, I resonate with that 100%. I see it a lot. I've got a really good friend who's a real estate strategist. He's genius. Nat Wallen here in Charleston. Smart guy. But one of the problems also is once the transaction happens, and I know this because I've bought and sold homes, it's almost like the real estate agent, it's like a one-night stand. You feel kind of like, what just happened? Like we were best friends, and now all of a sudden, like I can't even get them to answer a text because the agents have to move on. I mean, I get it. It's a tough job. But there are ways now with technology, and I'm sure you help people with this. Like you can automate the relationship on some level. You can send little reminders. By the way, congratulations, it's the 1-year anniversary in your home. Here's a checklist of things you want to look into. I mean, just all this kind of stuff. It can be automated, a lot of it. You can set up email flows, et cetera. And the thing about that is, I bought this house 3 years ago. At my age, I'm probably going to sit in it for a while, but like people buy and sell houses all the time. I'm actually referring people like, hey, do you have a good agent? I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, well, I had a guy that helped me. I didn't love him, but he did okay for us. Versus I got a gal that we love. We love this gal. You got to work with her. I mean, those kinds of referrals are worth beyond gold. Like what's more, platinum? I'm not sure what, diamonds, worth their weight in diamonds, because people don't shop. Once you tell me you have somebody you love, I'm in. And it's those kinds of after the sale touches that make it less transactional, but you can actually automate and aren't that expensive to do. So I'd be curious, like what's your take on that? How do you try to address that dynamic?
I love that. So I try to work with agents exclusively that do kind of that more relational selling instead of the buy. I would say my favorite in my area, her name is Amy Lesniak. I actually had her on the podcast. She does a party every year. And it's basically, she invites past clients. She just throws it on Facebook and is like, hey, come over to my house for Halloween.
That's a great idea.
I know. Like, and then here's the thing. Maybe you didn't hear from them the entire year. Catch up. Just sit down. Say like, we bought drinks. What do you want? Do you want like a Mountain Dew? What do you want? Sit down and just talk with them. Because now when like you said, when you have that real estate agent, it's like, yeah, dude, I was over at her house. Like, it's amazing.
Well, I would even I agree. And what I love about that too is there's social proof. Because now, like, okay, my wife and I worked with Amy. We bought a house. We love her. But now I'm in a room full of, as long as she's got if it's 3 people, it's kind of sad. But if I'm in a room full or a house full, so first of all, I'm getting to see her on a personal level. That's deepening the relationship. She's sitting down for she's touching everybody like, hey, how's it going? Not literally touching, you know what I'm saying? She's sitting talking. But I'm also meeting all these other really cool people that also bought homes or sold homes through her, which reinforces to me, like, I made a good choice. Like, look at all these great people. Look at this network I'm a part of. And it just tells me, like, I'm in the right place, which would make me then want to refer her even more or work with her again. I love that. That's brilliant.
It is. It really is. It's actually really funny because I don't have her as a client because she's doing too well.
So what would you have to do to get, like, when you say she's doing too well, do you mean to say that she doesn't need help? Is it
Yeah.
she's not feeling pain?
She's not feeling any pain with that because she spends next to no money on marketing because everything is relational. And so what's the cheapest type of lead? A referral. It's free. So her entire business is referrals right now. And she's booked.
So how is your agency positioned then? Like, who's your ideal client and what value do you create for them? I'm not trying to flip the script and interview the interviewer, but I'm just curious.
No. So mine is a SEO agency. So I do exclusively search engine optimization. I do some pay-per-click, but exclusively on Google because you can pair that really well with SEO.
Yes.
And then that's basically all I do for real estate agents. And my pain point that I really touch on is one of 2 things. Time, because a lot of real estate agents are like, I just need time back in my day. Or B, they just want a consistent flow of inbound leads and higher quality leads. Because you can go on Zillow, you can go on realtor.com and just buy tons of leads. But the average conversion rate for that is 2%. Whereas if they're coming to you and it's inbound, the average is 12. And I'm actually seeing 20 to 30% conversion rate.
Okay.
So
wow, that's pretty good.
It's really like, what do you need? And it's one of those 2.
Okay. And how did you find yourself in the real estate space? What attracted you to it?
So my girlfriend's uncle, he's a big real estate investor. And so I just listened to him for a bit and I was like, oh, this seems interesting. I'll get into that space.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
How'd you get into, you went from an agency to a strategic consultant. Talk to me about that segue.
Yeah, sure. So, loved design, aesthetics, et cetera, as a young person. I grew up in Western New York, Rochester, which is right next to Buffalo. I think you had a lawyer, an attorney from Buffalo. Where are you based, by the way, Andrew?
Wisconsin.
Okay. Oh, Midwest. So Buffalo is kind of the gateway to the Midwest. But anyway, so in my town, the Buffalo Bills, everybody loved the Bills because we were next door to Buffalo. But just to give you a sense of my aesthetic orientation, I love the San Diego Chargers at the time because I love their colors. I love the light. Like, I love the brand. I didn't know to speak in terms of brand as a kid. I was like, this thing is on fleek. Of course, we didn't use that back in the day, but I was always kind of oriented that way. Went to college, was fascinated by communication. So I studied communication, but minored in graphic design. So I've just always had this kind of leaning towards graphic design. I've been involved in it here, there, and everywhere. In my mid 30s, I ended up buying a design firm, this agency. I bought it. I was the 3rd generation of owners. It was founded. I met the founder before he passed away. There was a second, owner, and then I bought it from his estate, his wife, when he passed away. So running this graphic design firm in my 30s, loved design, was going out. We were working for Bird's Eye Foods. I was landing Bird's Eye Foods, Fisher Price Toys, Wegmans, which is a very high-end supermarket brand. We were doing Kodak, Xerox, all these great companies, packaging, branding, web dev, video, everything. And I love the design world. I was smitten by it. and I was entrepreneurial. I wasn't trying to be a designer. I was out there making the business work. As I matured, I became more and more strategic. So rather than jump into a meeting and say, "Hey, what do you got going on?" and "Well, we need a brochure," and "Okay, well, we can do a brochure," and I'm just kind of transacting. I started asking those questions like, "Well, tell me what's going on with your business." "Well, sales guys are saying they can't close deals without a brochure." "Well, tell me about your sales process and why do you think that is?" And the next thing you know, it's like, actually, they're saying they need a brochure, but there's this more strategic piece that needs to be addressed, and we can help you with that. So I started solving a different order of challenges, and I was out. One of my, I'm just so grateful for this guy. But there was a guy named Phil who is our creative director. Phil and I had known each other since we were young. We were out on a call together and trying to land a new client prospect. And afterwards he said, "I feel like we're holding you back." And I said, "What are you talking about, Phil?" And I'd been in the business for over a decade and I was unhappy. I felt kind of stuck. Like, I've got this big business, I've got all these employees, but I feel like I feel like the business owns me. I don't own the business. And I'm just busy trying to keep this thing going. And Phil said, "I feel like we're holding you back. I said, "What are you talking about?" I think he and I were grabbing lunch after this call. And he said, "Well, you're in there selling on a whole different level. We're a bunch of graphic designers and videographers and illustrators. We're all creatives. You're in there selling strategy. And I can tell you're trying to make sure that you win the kind of work that feeds us. But at the same time, there's something in you that just wants to go to those deeper problems." And it was like an aha, I didn't realize, like he said, I was like, "Oh my gosh, he's right." Anyway, long and short of it, uh, I, I'm a Christian. I started praying about it. I'm like, "Look, God, I want out of this business, but I want to be responsible, faithful, like all these families, et cetera. And I don't want to just cut and run." And so we hung in there for a few years, but I got to a certain point where I was like, it's time. It's time to make the transition. And so I'm going long on this story, but essentially what I did is I let the staff know, "Hey, we're going to wind it down. But in so doing, we're going to do this together. I'm not just going to lock it up. Let's make sure everybody lands on their feet." So, people were unhappy. They didn't want to see the business stop. But I made sure that, like, let's say, for instance, you worked for me and you were key on one of a client account. I talked to that client ahead of time saying, "Hey, we're winding things down. Andrew's been the main guy in your account. Can I make a recommendation that you either hire him as an employee or maybe freelance with him," depending on what everybody wanted. And so essentially everybody landed on their feet. I mean, some people had to go out and look for a job, but the long and short of it is we did it in a really nice way where people were whole in the end, both clients and employees. When I shut that down, one of my clients said to me, "Well, what are you going to do now that you're going to go sell yachts and sailboats? What are you going to do for a living?" And I said, "I'm not sure yet." And he's like, "Well, I still need your help. And I need your help on some strategy, et cetera." And from there, I just launched. I mean, that year I did about 300,000 in consulting work that just kind of flowed to me. I wasn't even out there selling. And I'm like, you know what? I love this work. I love the strategy, consulting, et cetera. So that was 2016 and I just ran with it. Yeah. So it's a long answer to a short question. I feel like I'm giving you my life history here, but that's kind of the route I took into consulting.
That's a really, really good first year. Holy cow.
Yeah, it is.
How much?
Doing better. It's funny. I had an agency doing more than $1 million in revenue. And I was barely able to pay myself because it just, the numbers weren't working. So much downward pressure on design, et cetera. As soon as I unload this thing, wrap it all up, I'm just getting like tens of thousands just flowing in. People are like, I need you. It was one of those things where it's like, it clicked. I'd been building towards this. This is my comment earlier about young people. You don't have to wait till you're in your 50s like me. I think I was 49 at the time I launched into this. Maybe I turned 50 in the next year in 2017. But it'd been building to this. And when all the pieces fell into place, like it just took off. I had all this experience. I love closing. I love selling. I'm a strategic mind. I had all this experience. I had a business network and I was able just to make it happen. Very grateful. I was humbled by it, but it was like, wow, I always thought business was a struggle. This is easy. And to this day, I love it. There are challenges, obviously, being an independent consultant. We could get into that if you wanted to, but yeah, that's the path.
Yeah, I definitely think that's almost seems like a price shift in a sense, right? Because you're almost selling the same thing. The only thing you're changing is the means of production. So instead of you selling like the production in addition to yourself, you're having someone else do the production. You're just giving the recommendation.
Yeah, I would agree with it to a degree. You're not wrong. What I did, however, when I had my agency, the kind of deliverable. So what would happen is I get into a meeting with a company that's doing, let's say, 500 million a year, a publicly traded company, whatever, and we got this problem. I was almost like I was giving the strategy away for free to try to get the design work. The design work, I mean, you can hire freelancers, you can hire big agencies. There are a billion different ways that you can get design work done. But the brain power to solve a deeper like to identify what the real problem is and the root cause of the problem and how to best solve it, that's not typical. You would think it is, but it's not typical. Everybody's too close to it. You need an outsider with a lot of experience. So in the agency model, and this is on me, this isn't anybody's fault, I was giving the strategy away. Hey, let me help you. Oh, here's how to do it. Here's what you need to do. And then I'd say, and by the way, my team can create all the assets. So I was selling the kind of low ticket, if you will, more transactional. Although my design team was phenomenal. I mean, they were deep thinkers, problem solvers, very creative. However, just all this downward pressure. When I went into consulting, it's like, no, I'm not giving any thinking away. I'm going to think you through a problem, and you're going to pay me for that. And then as far as the execution, I'm not going to own that. Like I can help you find freelancers, I'll advise you, but I'm not like, you're not going to pay me 10 grand for a brochure that I then outsource. I'll help you figure out the strategy, the sales process, the marketing funnels, all that jazz. And if we need a brochure, I'll help you evaluate a good designer and you just pay that person directly. I don't want to get involved in that. I don't make my living on markup. So I started getting paid for the high value stuff. And like you said, I wasn't outsourcing, but I just wasn't selling the lower margin work.
That's
The
smart.
more transactional.
That's really smart. That's definitely something I think I'm going to run into. So, because I can really help real estate agents, but my biggest crux is them actually selling. So I can bring in leads all day, every day. But if you can't sell those leads, I'm useless to you. And so having you come in and being like, hey, here's your sales problem would make not only my work more valuable, but you can also get paid to be the intermediary there.
Yeah. Yeah. What would that look like? I mean, so are you thinking it's more like teaching them to sell, helping them become better at certain aspects of sales, or where does your mind go when you consider that challenge?
My thought was, I know a guy who specifically does sales. That's all he teaches. He teaches sales. So I was thinking doing my course with it, or sorry, not a course with, but paying for his course in addition to what I'm doing. So I could be like, hey, if you sign with me, I'll also pay to have someone train your realtors on sales.
And what does his model look like? Is he working one-on-one coaching, or is it like a course that they can get access to?
It's course cohorts.
Got it. So that's something over time you could, I mean, I don't want to go on record saying you're going to do this because I don't want to scare your guy off, but as you get more experience, et cetera, and round out your business, you could create your own course down the road if you needed to.
Yeah. That is a thought.
Not saying you're going to do that. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And I think, this is so one of my challenges, because I'm going to back up. I believe that privately owned businesses are a mediating institution for our society, which sounds kind of professorial. Not that we're trying to do college classes here. And by the way, for the record, I'm a college dropout. So yeah, I went to college, but yeah, never. And I don't regret it. Actually, it forced me to work harder. But what I was going to say is, as society changes, people need fulfillment. They need challenges. They need material success, et cetera. But humans were deeper, and privately owned business is an area where people can dig in, they can create wealth for themselves and for others. They can, if you do good work that you're proud of, it gives you a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. It's an area where you can find a deeper meaning to life. Not saying that business is the meaning, but just you can get more satisfaction and fulfillment out of life without the government getting involved. I'm not trying to make this political, but politics are part of the human experience. So you get into a giant corporation and there are all these regulations and blah, blah, blah. But if you can run your own business, as you know, or your real estate agents know, they're kind of running their own businesses often, you get a lot of fulfillment, you get freedom, so on. So I'm committed to privately owned companies. I just think that they add so much to our culture and our society. The challenge for me as a consultant is I can only work with so many, 10 to $200 million companies. I can do 4 or 5, maybe 6. But at that point, it's nuts. Now I'm getting paid really well by these people, so it's not like financially I'm struggling. But I want to have more of an impact. I want to help people like you, hey, young guys and gals getting into business. So one of the things that I've been looking at when you talk about how do I help, can I offer this course? Can I partner with somebody? I'm actually getting ready to launch a publication. I'm going to do a monthly newsletter. It'll be premium. It's going to be print. 16 to 20 pages, but I'm going to tackle a topic every issue that's relevant to people that are starting or trying to grow a small business. And that way I can continue to impact my big companies that are feeding whole towns and villages and families and all that. But I can also help people like yourself or me when I was younger getting started going, I'm struggling. Like I'm trying to figure out how do you close deals or how do you build a funnel or, that type, how do I become better at strategy? I'm 27. I want to become more strategic in my thinking. How do I do that? Well, I can write this thing once a month and it can touch thousands of people. So I'm looking at, kind of a second business here where I can be more impactful to people getting started because this is the future. And I think generationally, people in my position have to do more to help younger people be successful because you guys are the future. I mean, Andrew, you're 19, a couple more days, but you've got a business going and you've got a vision and a heart for it. And that's not just important for you. It's important for all of us that you thrive in that because we all benefit from successful people like yourself. So yeah, I love what you're doing.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you, are you making it paid? The monthly publication?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Are you making the monthly publication? I'm assuming you're making that paid.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's going to be expensive. It's probably going to, I say probably, I mean, I know it's going to be about $97 a month.
Oh.
That'll include shipping,
That's
but it's
nothing.
going to be more of a premium. Yeah.
That's nothing.
Yeah.
I know. So Darren Lee, who's my coach, his coaching program started at $4,000 for 3 months. And so like paying for something, especially maybe a little bit more expensive, makes you dig into it more and makes it more valuable, especially when it's information.
100%.
It's the same
100%.
reason. Go ahead.
No, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's the same reason I buy all of my books instead of going to the library. It's because if I buy it, I have more of an incentive to read it.
100%. And you have it as an asset. I mean, it's, I'm with you on that. So exactly I wanted to make it expensive enough that it was valuable because first of all, to me, this is an investment. You're not just paying for it. You spend $97, you ought to be able to make $5,000. You know what I mean? Not that I'm going to give you some kind of internet secret where you can click a button and money flows in. But over a year, you're going to spend $1,000 plus minus 12 months. Like you should be able to make 10, 20, 50 grand off of what you learn easily. You have to apply it, obviously. So I wanted to make it proportional in value. But the second thing is, to your point, I need the reader to find it important, special, valuable. And if you do this kind of free, and it's why I'm not doing email. People are like, you should do email. It's easier. I've dabbled with that, but $5, $20 a month for an email. I can't get to all the emails in my inbox. But when something shows up in the mail, a book, a periodical, I make time for it. It's special. And so you're 100% right there in your thinking. I didn't want it to be so expensive, though, that it's out of the reach of somebody just getting started. $97, like you can skip a handful of coffees. That it's, it's 330 a day, or I don't know what the number is, but you can make a small sacrifice to afford that, to invest in yourself. But at the same time, you're going to feel it if you're just getting started. So yeah, that's my thinking.
I really like that. I would almost consider doing both email and doing physical, because like someone like me, I check my mail, but I only check it like once a week. So if you send it out, I won't see it for probably 3-4 days. Whereas if you send it to me via email, then A, I can see it. B, I know there's something coming to my mailbox. And maybe even do like half of it in the email, and then just do ... check your inbox, or check your mailbox.
I'll tell you what, I like the idea of a teaser. That's not a bad idea. A little bit of a teaser goes out to the people that are subscribers. Almost as a reminder, you're kind of setting some expectation, creating a little bit of excitement. That's a good idea. I considered like sending out it's going to be, like I said, minimum 16 pages typically. I considered maybe doing a PDF, but the problem I have with that is piracy. And even PDFs, you put them on a file, it's out of sight, out of mind. It's the same reason, like you said, you buy your books as opposed to going to the library. I buy, and it sounds like you do too, physical books. I'm looking at, I've got multiple bookshelves throughout the house, but I'm looking at one of my bookshelves over here, and it's like, I want to see what I have. I don't want to forget about it. When I finish one book, I want to go look at the other ones. Which one am I going to read next? If I want to refer back to something, hey, I want to look this up. When you file it on a computer, it's gone unless you remember to look for it. And so I've just avoided the digital approach, but I like that idea.
You can also take physical notes.
Yes.
Like,
how do you take notes? What's your approach to note taking?
Post-it notes. So like if I see something in the book that I really like, I post it. And then next time I'm reading it, I go back and I write on that post-it a summary of it. Okay.
That's cool. Have you ever looked into a note-taking system called Zettelkasten? It's German.
That sounds familiar, but no.
You ought to do a little research on that, and here's why. I discovered this approach to note-taking, like a handful of years ago, maybe 2017, 2018, I forget exactly when, and I was like, I wish I knew about this when I was younger, because I've always been a reader. I love reading. I love learning, but self-directed. That's why I dropped out of college. It's like I want to do my own learning. But Zettelkasten approach is fantastic because essentially you're creating this note box, and a lot of guys do it digitally. I do it on 3x5 cards and note cards, and I've got things. So essentially when you're writing things down, the analog process of writing something, like you read something, you're like, this is really good, I want to remember it. You kind of write it down in your own words. You can write quotes if you want. You kind of notate where you found it. You throw it in the box. What you do over time is like you pull that thing out because it starts to become this organic kind of network of ideas. And you're like, hey, I'm thinking about, cognitive dissonance, let's say, because I'm researching something in sales and cognitive dissonance. You start looking through your notes. You start synthesizing ideas. You're like, oh, that's right, I read this. It's just a phenomenal way it's like a second brain in essence. And it's really helpful for the future you when you want to create content from things that you've learned in the past. I don't make any money selling this. I'm just saying it's a fantastic concept. There are many ways to do note taking, but if you're interested in that kind of thing, you ought to do a little research on that.
That's a good one. I'll have to take a look. I know I'm pretty familiar with a lot of that stuff. My mother was a teacher for a very, very long time. So I was kind of born and raised of, this is how you study. This is how you learn things. And I haven't heard that one. Is it relatively newer, or is it just kind of niche?
No, I think it was popularized, if not kind of refined. I mean, note taking is a thing that humans have been doing forever since they could write. But there's this, like German intellectual. He's long passed, but his name was Nicholas Luhmann, and Luhmann was brilliant in the area of sociology. I don't necessarily agree with his positions in sociology. It doesn't matter, but he developed this Zettelkasten approach, and he was prodigious in his output, prolific. I mean, he put out 40 plus, 70 plus books, lots of papers. If you're in sociology, which I am not, he's very highly regarded. Now, the quality of his output, some people argue, yeah, he's not that good to read, et cetera, but that's craft. That's a craft issue. But he credits his Zettelkasten and his slip box or note box with his success and his ability to do his thinking, to innovate and to put out such a great amount of content for back in the day. I think he died. He may have died in like the 70s or 80s, maybe the 90s. I don't remember. So I mean, he's relatively contemporary, but he's not from like 1642. He's from the 1900s. I just don't remember the details of when he passed away. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a side question. Can I ask you another question?
Yeah, go for it.
So you mentioned SEO. My video, I made the comment, or I made the argument, SEO is dead. I kind of refined that position a little bit in the open when you asked me to talk about it. You're running an SEO, a solely SEO agency. What's your take on where SEO is and where it's going?
I think it's dead for specifically people who are exclusively online, or dying for people who are exclusively online. So the reason why I personally don't do a SEO blog for myself is because I think traffic is being taken away from people solely online, just giving away information. However, I think it's still going to be the exact same for local businesses and businesses that are location oriented, because no matter what, there's always a directory for something. Like if you want to find realtors, there's a directory. If you want to find electricians, there's a directory. If you want to find someone who's an HVAC, directory. And all Google is a directory of websites. And so if I'm looking for realtors, let's say, I'm going to find that directory and I'm probably going to pick the person on top. So I think it's dead in the sense of information-wise, because ChatGPT can come in. But ChatGPT can never fully replace that directory. And if it does, that's really, really bad, because it'll only pick the people at the top every single time, and it screws over every single small business. So I don't think that's going to be the case.
Why do you say ChatGPT or, Gemini or these others can't take over or replace the directory? What makes you believe that?
My guess, so here's kind of how I look at it. ChatGPT is an aggregate of essentially everything on the internet thus far. And it creates what are the most common things in that. So if, let's say, we're looking for realtors in X, right? We're going to pick the most common. And so it's only going to pick the top 3 realtors. Now, here's the thing. If we're a small business and we're trying to create a directory, like we're a municipality, and we want people to come to small businesses, we're going to fight against that. And there's hundreds of thousands of municipalities. So I'm willing to venture a guess that they're going to fight against ChatGPT becoming that directory and instead go to something like Yellow Pages or Zillow or Realtor.com, where you have those actual physical directories of all of them. And that's just me guessing. I could be totally wrong on that.
Okay, so that's on the information provision side. We're creating directories and providing information, but what about the consumer behavior? I mean, those directories are only as valuable as, by the way, I'm not arguing against, I'm just picking at this a little bit. I'm curious, this is intellectual curiosity. Those directories are only as valuable as the people that come to them to find answers. So if the consumer, do you envision the consumer behavior changing where people are going to stop going to Google and start looking for alternative human sources of information?
I think so.
How do you see that working?
I'm going to guess so. So ChatGPT always references something, or ChatGPT doesn't, but Google does. So when it's pulling that AI, it references it. And 9 times out of 10, if you look up realtors in X, it references a directory, even if it does. So you're still getting it from a smaller directory. So as long as you're ranking on that directory, that's who Google's going to pull. So even if it switches to that, those directories are still super, super important, and ranking on them is super, super important.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
The other thing is people are going to social media a lot for search now. So people are actually searching for queries on like Reddit, Instagram, funnily enough, TikTok of all places, but they're searching on social media. So it's still a search platform to an extent, but it's a social search platform instead of a peer search platform. That's also why I want to do YouTube videos.
Yeah, YouTube. I think YouTube is powerful. And I was all in for Google SERP, and I'm not against it anymore. But for years, it's been obvious to me that YouTube is phenomenal for semantic search. If I have to change if I'm having an issue with my lawnmower, I used to have a big riding mower. We had more property back in New York before we moved here, and I bought a little Honda I got, like I don't know, not even half an acre. So I'm mowing the lawn, and the lawnmower after a year or two, it's acting weird. So I just go to YouTube. I'm like, lawnmower, Honda, whatever, surging. And like, God bless him. There's some good old boy in Southern Ohio with a video about what to do and step by step. And the next thing you know, I'm back in business. And YouTube's perfect for that kind of thing. And other things too. Harder. I think it's harder for AI to kind of invade the YouTube space for the kinds of stuff that you and I are talking about, for sure.
Yeah, especially because it's hyper specific. Anything that's hyper specific, it's really, really hard for AI to take over.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you one more thing. So
go for it.
In the video, do you have what it takes to start a business? You basically mentioned that real estate is more of an investment style approach to business. So I'm really curious, like, why do you say it's more of an investment style compared to other businesses?
Yeah, thanks. I think, like anything, you have to put a finer point on it. What does real estate mean as an investment? So from a classic real estate, meaning I bought a plot of land and I sat on it, and then I sold it 20 years later for a profit, or I bought an apartment complex and I'm getting some cash off that monthly, and it's building equity. I might, as people pay their rent, it's paying for itself and throwing off some cash. I might, add that to a portfolio of properties that as I get older, I liquidate, sell, et cetera. That's the classic. That's more of an investment, and it's an investment because it's very interesting from an economic standpoint, economic theory. You're actually not. Let's say you buy a piece of land in a small outskirt of a city, and then you get it cheap, and you sit on it for 20 years. Well, as that city grows and expands, all these people are doing things. They're putting gas stations in. They're upgrading roads. All these things are happening near your property, which over time elevates the value of that property. When you bought it, it was just some dusty patch, like nobody cared. But you just kind of sit and wait for the community to do its thing, and the community's investments, efforts, changes, and growth over time increase the value of that property, and then you can realize that value. You can develop it, you can sell it, etc. To me, that's like buying stocks. You're just trying to buy smart. You're trying to guess where the market's going to go, and you profit. The other side of it, though, could be like, hey, my wife and I, we buy houses. They're in rough shape. We invest a bunch of time and money. We fix them up, and then we flip them. To me, that's a little bit more like your classic business where you're creating value. I'm taking something that is low value, and I am investing myself, my skills, my own capital. Maybe I'm borrowing money, my time, labor, et cetera, to increase the value of this. And then I'm realizing that value back to the market when I sell it. So I guess if I put a fine point on it, the first, the former is more the investment model, where the latter is more of a business, where I'm taking something, improving it, and selling it. Because the classic way that you make money in business is you find a way to improve something. You create value, and then you realize that value in the market. You hear people talk about rent seeking, and they apply that across anything. It's not just rent like we think of, it's an economic term, but rent seeking is essentially you didn't do anything. You just waited and you're benefiting. And the kind of passive income bros, they're kind of rent seekers. They're just looking for arbitrage. It's like, this guy needs something. This guy's got something to sell. I'm going to jump in the middle and realize a couple bucks in the process. And to me, that's not as interesting as a business. It's not as fulfilling. I don't think you're really providing a service. I mean, they could argue, hey, I'm connecting the buyer and the seller, but there's all kinds of technology that does that. You're just kind of taking advantage. I'm not against it. I just don't find it that interesting. But I don't know if that answers your question, but that's why I made that comment.
No, yeah, that 100% answers it. And I 100% agree. So I think a lot of real estate agents also get into it purely for that passive thing, because you get the tax benefits of being an agent especially when you do like rental properties and stuff, because you can just flow it into the next one. And so it's like, I think a lot of people get into it for that investment purposes. Like, I feel like a lot of real estate agents, like just a pure agent, I think that's a business. It's a very salesy business.
Yes.
Whereas if you're doing an agent, but then underneath it, you're doing investment, that's just a business disguised as an investment portfolio.
Yeah, that's all it is. And there's nothing inherently wrong. But if you're entrepreneurial, and because you asked a question about real estate, and there's a difference between being a real estate agent and being in real estate in the sense of I own. And so you're right. A lot of people that get into real estate as an investment or a business, apartment complexes, et cetera, or even people flipping, they go get their agent license so that they can save money on the transaction. Smart thing to do. You ought to do it. But there are people who are like, hey, I know young guys and gals that like, I don't really want to go the college track, or I just got out of college. I got a degree in sculpture. I don't know why I did that, but I need to make a living. And so they get into real estate. And my father was a real estate agent later part of his career for a while there. He did really well. He's a good sales guy, but he worked hard. That to me is a business, because you in principle are providing a value. Now, this is where I think a lot of the consumer side of the equation people get angry. They're like, I don't feel like my agent earned their commission. The agent would argue otherwise, but like, I'm forced to use an agent. I don't want to have to use an agent. The market, the way it's regulated and so on, and I can't get access, and I got to use an agent. I don't want to. They didn't really work that hard. I had to find the house. Like, I did all the work, and then they collect the commission. So I think the great agents are the ones that say, no, I understand the pain, like we talked about earlier. I'm going to provide value. I'm going to solve real problems. I'm going to make their life better. I'm going to hold a party afterwards and build relationships. And those are the ones that just take off. Because they're finding ways to add value, to solve problems, and to make people's lives better. They earn every penny of their commission, and their customers agree. They're like, yeah, I'm thrilled that Susan made that money. She earned it, and we're grateful. So that's like any business. I mean, you get people that are lazy, and you get people that get it. And the ones that get it are the ones that really do well.
I think the other thing that agents provide really, really well is framing. So they understand what the value of the home is from a market perspective, and so they can price it correctly. Like, if you see someone where it's for sale by owner, 9 times out of 10, they're going to list it as either way too much or way too little.
Yeah.
So if you get the agent who prices it right, they earn their commission just by making you an extra like $20,000.
Absolutely.
But so many.
we sold our.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I didn't mean to cut you off. When we sold our house in New York, we'd bought this. Yeah, it was like an old farm. The house was built in the 1800s. The farm was huge, but by the time way back when, but we bought it was like 5 acres, old house. We bought it pretty low because it had been sitting vacant. It was rough, and we started putting money into it and fixing it up. It was beautiful. It was like my wife had chickens. Everybody was happy, except for me, because all the money that had to go into that house. Anyway, we sat in the house for a number of years, put some money into it. When we wanted to leave New York, the market was blowing up. And in our city in Rochester, real estate never really did much. It was pretty flat. Well, we hired this agent to help us sell it because she was brilliant at how she would market the house, position it. And she essentially, which is unheard of in New York at the time, in Rochester, it's more common now. She kind of wouldn't accept offers except for a certain window. So people got to do walkthroughs, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, we're accepting offers on Thursday from 10 a.m. to noon or whatever the number. And so what she did is she got people competing for it, as opposed to the first couple walks through and they go, you know what, we'll take it. Here's our offer. And then my wife and I have to go, should we accept it? Should we go back out in the market? So this lady she made us an extra $75,000 or $80,000 easy. So she was worth her weight in gold. And we sold the house for, I want to say, double what we bought it for just a handful of years before. And she got people competing with each other. One guy says, well, I'll give you X. And then she lets the other ones know, hey, we got an offer for X. Well, we'll increase it 10 grand. And in the end, we made really well. We made out really well. So 100% agree.
Real estate agents, it's really important to find good ones, because they do little things like that make a huge difference. Huge.
Yeah.
So I didn't have anything else for you. Where would you like to send people?
Yeah, I would love for them to sign up for my newsletter. I do a weekly newsletter. I talk about a little bit about strategy, tools, tips, private business, etc., marketing. Just go to my website. It's mikegastin.com. That's MikeGastin.com, mikegastin.com. And you can sign up at the top of the page. Just throw your email in there. No spam. Yeah, I do have things to sell from time to time, but I just try to offer some experience stories and whatnot to help people get better at business strategy and marketing. Love to have you guys along for that. And of course, you can go to my YouTube channel. We talked about that a little bit. Again, it's just mikegastin.com.